And I'm not so witty when I'm sober, so Bailey's and amaretto it is.
The winning formula.
That's a morning drink, isn't it?
It is, yeah, but it's, it's not Christmas, so
Hi, hello, it's Press X to Podcast, and it's January 17th, 2018. I'm your host, Paul Sullivan. Alongside me today, I've got Trevor Houston.
Hello.
And formerly of COGconnected, Shawn Petraschuk.
God, that sounds so weird. Formerly sounds weird. So weird to me. That's an adjustment I'm not yet used to. It'll take a while. Was that Trevor's sigh?
Yes, it's
a pretty deep sigh.
I'm not gonna lie. It's been a sad week over here at the Houston household. Not a lot of video game playing. I've been mopey, sulky, a little bummed.
I'm looking forward to you explaining this to the listeners here, because I do enjoy how in our notes for the podcast, it's "I hate Shawn now," a Houston manifesto. So I'm prepared to absorb some low blows here. So I've got my tissues handy, and then I'm also gonna take notes in case I need to fire back.
You might want to put on your crash helmet too, Shawn.
Oh shit! All right, the Houston manifesto begins now.
Yeah, so it's not really a manifesto. It's just sort of I've been a bit mopey, a bit sulky, but in saying that, I am incredibly happy for my good friend, and who's been my partner here with COGconnected. Just to be clear, not life partner. Not that's Susie. Not that there's anything wrong with that. If we were. As I really get sidetracked here, but no, I am really happy for Shawn.
You might as well just be like, no, seriously, I love the gays. I love them.
Yes, I love them.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not that there's anything wrong. But in all seriousness, Shawn has gone to the dark side. He is now in the land of video game PR.
Yep.
Which is it's a really cool, incredible opportunity for him. I'm happy for it's good for his health, his family, everything. It's awesome. But it's a huge loss to COG. There is, like I said to Shawn earlier this week, man, there is no those are some massive shoes to fill. I mean, you were a key cornerstone in our rebranding and everything we've done. So in building COGconnected. That's COGconnected.com, COGconnected on the Instagram, the Twitter, Facebook. Give us a follow. Yes, I'm a company man. It was a lot for us. It's a lot for us to manage, but we made it work. We made it work with an awesome team. And I just wanted to say that I'm happy we get a chance to do this podcast together, but it's going to be tough. Life without Shawn on COGconnected is going to be tough. But I am really excited for what's ahead for him.
There's that part of me that feels like I should I'm almost close to tearing up. I mean, it was a bit of a hard week saying goodbye, but I mean, I'm not going to lie in that I'm a little bit disappointed because you don't hate me at all. I mean, I was waiting for all those angry statements, but you didn't give me anything to work with here. So now I need to be just as nice as you were.
Well, it's weird. It feels, having gone through a separation and divorce, it almost feels like that, except it's much more amicable.
Except I'm not trying to take everything you own.
Right. You're not trying to take me to the cleaners. So, so I mean, it almost feels like that. There's a huge part where I'm mourning the loss. I'm uncertain about the future. Where, you know what I mean? It's really, it's been sort of, just a mixture of emotions, ups and downs, and a lot of it's fear. I don't know, what does the future hold for COGconnected? It's wow. It's
I think COGconnected as a whole is going to be just fine. I mean, we've obviously built, it's been a lot of hard work, but we've built a really solid team. Obviously, Paul, you're stepping up to take on a bigger role. And we got a few other guys that are kind of stepping up to take on a bigger role while I make this transition. And I mean, I guess we should maybe clarify for the listeners here, that I've taken on a position with Evolve PR, who are one of the more well-known PR agencies within the video game industry. They tend to focus a lot on indie games, that sort of thing. And in my first week, I've learned that I don't know anything about how PR works. We have an idea of what we think maybe like that video game PR is, and it's like, oh, play this game. But being able to get in on the ground and see, listen in on these phone calls with developers and hearing a developer who has an immense amount of passion for their game, taking their ideas and their thoughts and putting that forward into a marketing campaign that's going to get people to listen. There's a lot more into it than I ever realized. So, I mean, I'm part scared, that I gave up a pretty solid career to move into this. I'm kind of petrified, but I think, more importantly is just that saying goodbye to COG is really, really, really hard. Really hard. It's been my baby for a long time, but
of course.
But you know what? Like you say, it's kind of like one of those onward and upward things. I'm pretty happy with the team that we've built. So for anybody who's listening, who obviously, hits the site, I wouldn't expect what they see on the site to change too much. They can still count on us, or you. They can count on you. God, that's weird.
I mean, I like I said to the team and to you, I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to do the best. But there's no replacing you, buddy. I mean, and So there's been many days where I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to do this by myself? Like I've always had you to lean on, and you've every day, every morning at 6 a.m, the pair of us are Facebook messaging back and forth. We probably send on average 60 messages a day, just kind of going back and forth because of the many things that we're dealing with.
We would send more if we were arguing.
Well, yes, there were arguments, but hey, we're passionate, right? We're passionate. I mean, yeah, despite the fights, and sure, there'd be a few heated arguments. We always came from the same place. We always had the site and our passion for the site, at the front. So,
well, that's why I'm glad that we've got that team that can still build it, and that we've got Paul here who can step up and fill a good portion of those shoes, right, Paul?
Not putting you on the spot or anything.
Sure. Yeah. All right.
Okay, I'll do that.
A time like this is always a good chance for both sides in this divorce to step back and take a look at how things have been done. And there's nothing wrong with the way we've been doing things, and things have been very successful. But I think it's a good opportunity for us as COG to take a look at what we're doing and.
Well, yeah, I mean, changes can be made, and hopefully those changes end up, making the site better than ever. But I mean, I think the bottom line here is what we really need to focus on is that I can still do the podcast, and that's pretty rad.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't need to leave that behind. We only just started. We've only just begun.
That's right.
Yeah, when we were cooking this baby up, this whole PR move hadn't come down the pipe just yet, so we were all stoked, and when the news hit,
spent money on things like a domain and all that jazz. I mean, we'd hate to see that money wasted now, wouldn't we?
Yeah, to be honest, I was a little nervous when you were moving over, but I'm glad to see that you're still able to do the podcast. And for those who are listening, from an ethics perspective, we're always going to be pretty upfront if we're going to talk about something that Shawn is representing or something that Evolve's representing.
That Evolve is representing as a whole, exactly.
Yeah.
You don't need to call the Gamer Gators or anything like that to string us up by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. We're going to keep things on the level.
And we're just three dudes talking about video games. I mean, really, that's all we're doing here.
That's right. Speaking of video games, are we going to talk about some video games? Or are we going to mope for another 45 minutes?
Oh, I'll be moping well after this podcast. Don't you worry. I'll have the mope department secured.
So, Trevor, are you even aware of anything that happened this week?
It's
been hard to see the computer screen through the tears.
I've been a tad shell-shocked. But I do know about, I have heard about what's going on with Lawbreakers.
You mean what's not going on with Lawbreakers? Yeah. Maybe we should elaborate?
Yeah, literally nothing is going on in Lawbreakers, and the Steam numbers actually hit absolute zero this week.
Isn't that crazy in that it was released in August? I mean, it's, 7 months, give or take, that it's been released. And I mean, obviously with a game that's completely reliant on other people playing, one person can't play solo sort of thing. I mean, once those lobbies start to drop off, I mean, we would commented, I think, what was it, 7,500 players at its peak during beta. Obviously, there was not a lot of interest.
Even after release. 7482 all-time peak.
So it didn't even hit that after release?
No.
Oh my gosh. That's insane. Like, I mean, I feel bad for Cliffy. I mean, I think we discussed it the last cast in that, you know, he went up against a lot of competition. Doesn't mean it was right for him to blame, you know, like where, you know, oh, it's PUBG's fault or whatever. I mean, obviously you didn't do enough to make your game stand out. But I mean, as games go, there's so much worse out there. So to think that nobody's playing it and it's dead in 7 months is kind of sad.
Well, and I feel bad for, I think of all those devs that worked on the game, that put their heart and soul, you know, and they're people with families, and they worked on this thing for years and years, for it to just flop like this and for it to just die. I really think of the devs. I think of those hundreds, probably hundreds. I don't know how many worked on the game, but in some cases, you know, dev teams can be up to a couple
500 people.
Right, exactly. Like
depending on the game.
So, you know, my heart goes out to the devs, those people that work so hard on trying to put together the best game possible, and it's just tanking.
Yeah, because Cliffy will survive, but perhaps this is a little bit of humble pie for him to eat, and maybe kind of come back, you know, because he will come back, but maybe come back with a bit of a different attitude. Because I mean, some people do like to kind of take cracks at him because he's pretty high on himself at times. So maybe this is a bit of a lesson learned. I mean, an unfortunate way to learn it, but I don't know. I didn't play it, obviously, right? I mean,
nope. Neither did I. But I feel like going in, I feel like playing a little bit just so I can be like, hey, I'm here. One person in the lobby. Hello.
I think what we should do, all three of us should get our hands on Lawbreakers, because I mean, by now you should be able to get it for almost free, and all three of us can go in there, and then we'll make sure to get on the tweeters. And we'll tweet Cliffy and be like, bro, we're here for you. And we'll all send him a fist bump. We'll all fist bump him to show him our support.
I don't know if Cliff has Twitter on the tropical island that he's, you know, relaxing on with his Gears cash.
Well, that's right. It's not like he's broke.
Yeah.
I mean, and if he was to respond, I'm pretty sure, like, noting our level of sass in those tweets, that he'd tell us to go and fuck our hats.
Yeah, probably.
You know, the good thing, though, with the gaming industry, though, is that even though this game has flopped, if Nexon decides to pack it in and not do anything after this, I think the industry is pretty good about recognizing the work that was done by devs and that was good. And it's not necessarily the guy who programmed the physics' fault that the game flopped. So, you know, that guy's going to be okay. He's going to find another gig.
Do you think that at this point, Nexon, or what was the name of the dev team? Was it Boss Key? I think was Cliffy's company's name. Yeah. Do you think they're taking this though and sitting back and go, okay, well, we screwed up and it's a loss? Or do you think that they might be contemplating turning it into a free to play model? I mean, to try and get it back in to the news. I mean, it's a lot of work to just give up on. So you think that might be a route that they could take, that maybe they develop some new characters, you know, a couple other maps, you know, start working in the background and drop it as a free to play. See if that would actually maybe bring up interest.
But do they even have a base to work with? You know what I mean? Like, if nobody is playing your game, would that model kickstart, you know, Lawbreakers? I don't know.
Well, you know, I mean, the funny thing is, I mean, this is one of these things that week with the PR thing is that, you know, it's a matter of getting that voice out there. You need to generate the buzz, right? So obviously that's what they did wrong. They didn't generate any buzz. Nobody was talking about the game. Even when we went to see it at E3, they were in a back room that nobody, and it wasn't busy. I mean, anybody could get in for a Lawbreakers appointment, you know? So it's about generating that buzz, maybe say, hey, we released and look at where we are now. You know, we've decided to completely change it up. We're going with this, and, you know, really push to players, you know their market, push to players that, you know, that they've got a product worth playing. You know, you've got to develop that buzz. That's up to them.
Yeah, it's strange because I feel like media, you know, they liked it before release. You know, they enjoyed it, but yeah, it just didn't it didn't get that level of buzz that it needed.
I mean, if they're going to do anything, they got to do it now. Period of games. You know, I mean, you start getting forward into March and April, big games are already on the way. So if they're going to do something, I would say they probably got to do it now. And I just find it surprising that they'd be willing to just let it all drop. I think they got to be kind of in their war room going, okay, how do we fix this? How do we at least turn this into a positive?
Yeah, I'm sure there are market researchers going nuts trying to figure out how to save this thing. But honestly, I don't know that it can be saved.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm with you on that. I think they might be at the point of no return. Like, you guys had your chance and you completely blew it. But like I say, free to play sometimes perks some people's ears. There are examples of games out there that do it right. I haven't played it myself, and actually I was chatting with some people about it the other day because I'm curious. But something like Warframe is an example of a game that does it right. It's a great game that people seem to love, and the microtransaction model isn't like overly forced onto you. I mean, I do believe that even in a free to play model, like if you're enjoying the game, some people have this expectation maybe with something like Warframe that, well, it's free to play and I don't want to spend any money, but you look at like how good the game is and you're like, the devs deserve something for their hard work. You know what I mean? I'm not sure where I'm going with this. I just think that like Lawbreakers, if they come out there with that model, that maybe they can kind of get a fresh set of eyes on, like, even from the media side, where they look at it and they go, okay, let's talk about this a little bit more. Let's put it out there a little bit more and see what the response is from the audience.
Maybe.
Yeah, Warframe's the one that actually came to mind for me as well, because I mean, the game plays pretty well and you can get away with playing for free, but if you're going to pay for something, it doesn't come off as too abusive.
Exactly, which is the right way to do it, because I'm always wary of that type of model, right? Yeah. I mean, a lot of free-to-play model, and we're talking more so into the mobile side of things, right? Because that's kind of where it originated. But a lot of free-to-play models, what you end up doing, or what their end goal is they want you to spend more money than what it would cost you to buy a full-fledged game outright. So, if you're going to go out there and you're going to spend, say, $60 worth of microtransactions, and you wouldn't feel the need to spend any more, and you're beyond up to speed, like you've got a full game in front of you, that to me is reasonable. But these models where it's like you can spend thousands of dollars, I'm like, and maybe still feel like you're left out of certain things, that's a model that I can't support. I can't get behind that in any way. So that's something they need to avoid, without a doubt.
Flipping the script, who is doing really well?
Who?
Well, we got after last week's cast where we were talking about GTA Online, we got an email from Rockstar PR saying that actually December 2017 was the biggest month ever for GTA Online.
That is incredible. I mean, it's incredible considering how long the game has been out. And I don't quite understand it. Like, it's incredible that they are able to this far after release. And I mean, I recognize GTA Online's probably not the same game now as it was at launch. I mean, it's
100% different. Yeah, for sure.
It's crazy. Cars have rockets, parachutes, like it's nuts. But it's incredible the level of support they still have.
Yeah, what's incredible to me is that Rockstar actually listened to our podcast.
that was pretty cool.
Basically all the way to the end.
Yeah, well, it's not something you get from skimming. It's like you had to actually listen to it. And I'm also incredibly happy that Carrie Wagoner, the PR rep, didn't rip into me about my lack of enthusiasm for Rockstar and saying that they get a pass. Didn't say a damn thing. Although I did reiterate that I enjoy the games. I just kind of wonder if some hive mind comes into play that says, "Oh, everything they do is gold." But it was nice that I didn't get in trouble in any way.
I was happy he didn't take my advice, that he not only downloaded, but he listened. So that was really cool.
Yeah, welcome everybody to Download, Don't Listen.
Download, don't listen.
Yeah.
I've been told already by numerous people that they think that's a great name for a podcast.
The Download, Don't Listen pod.
I'm going to have to go camp on that domain now, just in case.
Mm-hmm.
One other thing to follow up on from last week that we were talking about was Nintendo and Nintendo Direct. And there was a big one.
It was a big one, but I also felt like it was really, really safe, in that it's ports. I mean, I don't know. We're not getting a lot of anything new. I kind of expected a little bit more news of things that are new. But that being said, I mean, all these games, that are kind of getting that port, sort of like Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze, for example. There were so many great Wii U games that deserved to be played, and people just weren't willing to invest in a platform that had no third-party support. Obviously, that has changed. And, to see those games come over and have an audience finally, getting more people to actually see how great those games are is nothing but a good thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to get Donkey Kong on the Switch, and Mario Tennis Aces looks great. Dark Souls Remastered, that's pretty cool. There were some good announcements, but I'm with you. There was nothing sort of earth-shattering.
No, I mean the Nintendo fans, though. I mean, watching over Twitter, we're blowing up about it. I mean, maybe maybe I'm not as enthusiastic a Nintendo fan. You know what I mean? But so for a hardcore Nintendo guy that's the only platform they have or whatever. Yeah, there was probably a lot of news that they're going to really lose their shit over for sure. I know that a lot of people were really, really, really happy about the announcement of The World Ends With You as well. People seem to be almost more stoked about that one than anything.
Yeah, that's a massively underrated game. Probably one of my favorites from the DS era, I would say.
Oh, really? See, and I never played it. I never played it. So, I mean, it was hard for me to make a judgment. But I mean, as long as people are excited, you know what I mean? I'm excited for them. I'm not that type, I don't like to crack down and bitch about things for no good reason. So if there's enough people out there who are super pumped, well, then good on Nintendo, right? It's great.
Yeah, and if history holds true, Nintendo's holding off on something, their one big thing for E3. The past 2 years, they had the giant Zelda booth, and then it was Mario. So they've got something up their sleeve if history holds.
They've definitely got to have something in the pipes. I mean, I think this year is going to be a good year for them to deliver on known franchises, on known IPs. But inevitably, if they want the Switch to continue, I mean, they're going to need continued help with that third-party support. But I'm kind of thinking it's time for Nintendo to start diving into brand new ideas of their own. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'll never turn down another Mario game, for example, or Zelda game, but that's also safe for them. I mean, I want us to, that they've got these brilliant minds that are capable of coming up with these amazing games. Well, let's start seeing something a little different, right? Not franchises that debuted 30 plus years ago.
Yeah, Shiggy's come up with something new in the last 30 years. They've been putting out Zelda and Mario all the time, but he's come up with something even wackier.
Well, yeah, exactly.
He's got a sketch pad somewhere.
It's just a shame that maybe they're, I don't want to say that they're afraid by any stretch, but I mean, what's holding them back from debuting something big? I mean, I guess they did go out on a limb with ARMS. I don't think that was really the reception that they would have hoped for, but they were trying to showcase that as, the power of the Joy-Cons. And I mean, apart from 1-2 Switch, which people they really marketed that smartly in that, they made it feel like you had to have 1-2 Switch if you had a Switch to feel what these Joy-Cons were capable of. But for the most part, they're not being used yet, right? They need to capitalize on exactly how neat these things are, right? And we're not seeing that yet, but we're also so early. We're not even at a year yet. We're so early in the lifespan of this console that we've got so much more to see.
Yeah, and I think the time's right. I mean, they've quickly erased the memory of the Wii U. The Switch is doing well. The 3DS sold millions. They're ahead of the game now. So I think the time to take a chance on a new IP, on a new idea, the timing is perfect for Nintendo to take that risk.
Well, the timing is perfect after Metroid.
I don't know if I'm that excited about Metroid since they basically confirmed that it's going to be a Prime style, first person game.
Yeah. I mean, I wish that they would more so embrace the Metroid that we grew up on. You know what I mean? I mean, if I could see a beefed up version of Super Metroid in some way that really took advantage of, how tech has moved forward, a beautiful game, that sort of thing. I mean, I would definitely. I mean, they would get my money in a heartbeat. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm with you on that.
That's a tough one though, because there are so many amazing Metroid style games out there. If you just up and down the Steam charts, they're all over the place and they're all really, really good.
Yeah. I mean, speaking obviously to the quality of the game, there's a reason why Metroidvania is its own genre. You know what I mean? They kind of set, they set the bar for that kind of game. But I mean, if anybody's going to beat Nintendo at their own game, it's probably going to be Nintendo, won't it? Or we would hope.
One would hope. Moving on. Do you guys remember the Duke?
Oh yeah,
I love
the Duke.
Why?
The man's man of controller.
I loved the Duke, but I don't get why they're like. I can't see them selling a lot of this thing. This new Duke.
It's not a first party controller. It's who's putting that out?
It's a Hyperkin.
Hyperkin.
That's right. But
still, I mean, I get that, but I mean, what's the price on this thing? What is it? 69. So it's $70. It's $70 for a controller that, I mean, obviously wasn't that great to begin with. I mean, obviously a lot of people didn't like it. I had no problem with it, but that's because I'm a dude with big hands. You know what I mean? Like,
right. You gotta have big mitts and big digits for that one.
Yeah, so to say, like, I mean, we joked kind of pre-podcast. You know what they say about guys with big hands. They need big controllers, I guess.
Big sausage digits.
Wow. But it's just it just seems like, I mean, I don't know if there's enough nostalgia around this fucking thing that like people are going to spend $70 to say, yeah, I bought Duke 2.0. No one's going to fucking buy this thing. Nobody.
Like if you own an Elite controller, you like, oh yeah, I'm ditching this and I'm going with Duke. Like, are you really doing that?
It's stupid. It's stupid. I mean, again, as much as I have nostalgia for it, the idea of bringing it back, charging $70 and thinking that you guys are going to sell more than just the smallest handful of them, it's stupid. It doesn't make sense.
I don't know if it's for me. I mean, the whole nostalgia thing is kind of cool. I'll be like, oh, I wouldn't mind one. Then I start to think about it. I'll be like, yeah, but I like the controllers I have, and why do I want to hang on to a big tank of a controller again? So I don't know if it's for me. I think a lot of people are getting swept up in the hype, but
I think the market they're going for is the guy that wants to buy it and put it on his shelf just to say he has it. No one's going to play with this thing. No one's going to plug it in and go, yeah, this is the greatest. It's so responsive. Man, I can't believe they ever gave this up. No one's doing that. Not a soul. Right?
The thing that got me looking at this image is the fact that the black and white button are on there. So, I mean, games rely so heavily on bumpers now. Like, you're going to have to be pushing the black and white button instead, right?
Ooh,
yeah, that's right. Because that's right. The Duke only has the single. There's no bumpers. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, also there you go. Your use is going to be limited. I mean, actually, in the news this week as well. I mean, if anything that someone might be willing to go and shell $70 out for is Hori doing a controller for the PS4 that pretty much mimics the Xbox controller. You know, that's something I can see people spending $70 on if they're not a fan of the DualShock controller. But this just seems like a wasted endeavor, and I think it's going to blow up in Hyperkin's face. I hope they didn't spend a lot of time in development on this thing.
We'll see. I mean, there's a lot of Xbox fans, especially the old school ones that were there, 15 years ago or whenever the original Xbox launched. I think some of them will scoop it up.
But actually, they think some of them, we were there and we could not care. We don't care. We don't give a fuck. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I've moved on. I don't need it.
No, exactly. I mean, I got better places to spend $70.
Yeah. Well, and that's for our friends north of, south of the border.
Yeah.
Yeah, that controller.
That's $100 controller in this country, in Canada.
For us, yeah.
Good God.
And Hyperkin also spent the cash to put a giant OLED screen in the middle of the controller that plays the Xbox startup animation when you press it.
Oh, I didn't know it did that.
I didn't know that
shit.
either.
Oh, no.
Okay, I'm going to buy it now.
There goes my $70.
All right,
I'm in. That's all it took.
Right.
No, I'm still out. I don't have any interest in this controller. I think it's cool that they wanted to give it some props in a sense, but I'm just I got way better things to spend $70 on, man.
Yeah.
I got a family to feed, mortgage to pay.
Right.
It doesn't rank.
But you don't have a website to manage anymore.
No, I mean, like I say, I mean, I am appreciative of the fact that I wake up and then within 30 seconds I can be at work and I'm not wearing pants. So, I mean, there are some, despite the fact that when I sat in on the weekly meeting, the Evolve weekly meeting that happens every Friday, the entire team, they welcome me, and then they go into actual business. So they're talking about different things that they're representing and PR plans and all this stuff. And I didn't understand a word of it. I muted my mic and I sat back, and because it was all on video, right? We were all on video. I wanted them to think that I was still taking part. So I just nodded my head a lot. I just nodded in my head like I was understanding everything.
You didn't fall asleep, so that was good.
No. It was funny. The first few days, they eased me in, and then on Friday, they're like, here's all the projects you're working on, and my eyes rolled into the back of my head, and my head spin around in like a couple of circles, and I was like, oh shit, this is what it's really like. So I got a lot to learn before I'm comfortably set in that world.
Well, just remember that nodding your head is the first step to understanding.
Sure.
Just keep nodding until it works.
Exactly. I'm very good. My neck, a lot of nodding to be done, I'm sure, over the next 2 to 3 weeks while I get up to speed.
Yeah. So in other news, the Xbox One finally outsold the PS4
over the holiday stretch.
Correct.
Now I haven't.
That's good news.
Well, I'm not 100% up to speed on this. I guess okay. So how much of it was the Xbox One X? How much of it was the Xbox One S? I'm wondering. Do we have that information specifically, or is it just Xbox as a whole?
Probably Xbox as a whole.
This is just relying on a tweet from Aaron Greenberg, who basically said, yes, Xbox outsold PS4 for December.
Yeah, I mean,
I
think looking at Christmas, especially the One X, you're going to have the hardcores who shelled out the cash.
Right.
I'm pretty sure there was a bit of a price drop on the S, or at least there were some decent bundles over the holidays that probably helped. Right. But I mean, still, I think we touched on this on the last cast, in that Microsoft kind of needs to get their head out of their ass if they want to continue that level of success. I mean, at this point, you're not dropping a new console in 2018. You're not dropping anything like that. So, if you want that success to continue into January, February, et cetera, you kind of got to start coming with the games, fellas. I think otherwise this is a 1 month success. Like, this is erased from history in a sense, right? This is literally 1 month where you did better. Good for you. But the other guys are going to take control again at the snap of a finger.
Yeah, I do have some friends that picked up the Xbox One S at like really good prices, like, so, less than $250, $200. And so for us in Canada, that's a pretty good price. And they're not really gamers, so they're just kind of getting back into it. They have kids and they want to get them into gaming, and so this is for some of them, it's their first console purchase in forever. So I think it's a combination of the price drop, the Xbox One X, but I think it's good news. I mean, hey, more consoles sold is good news for gamers. It's good news for the industry. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I want to see more out of Microsoft for sure. And I mean, if that takes selling more consoles, I mean, maybe with these price drops and these bundles, we're getting to the point in this generation. I mean, I use the word generation really loosely because, we're at this point of constant upgrades. But, maybe the people who bought in, ground level at the beginning of this generation and they bought a PS4, that's where they hung their horse. They were like, I'm going with Sony this round, which a lot of people obviously did. I mean, we've touched on this before, where they didn't take kind of a lead, they took an enormous lead that is probably insurmountable at this point. But maybe those people now, they've had 2 or 3 years with their console, they're like, okay, we're seeing price drops. And, they might not have a lot, but man, I want to play these games. I want to maybe get my hands on Cuphead. I'd like to play Gears 4, whatever. Now that the price is coming down, that balance is starting to work in Xbox's or in Microsoft's favor. And they're seeing that market come over as well. I mean,
the bottom line, like you touched on, Trevor, is more consoles. I mean, and that's any console, more PS4s, more Switches, more Xbox One. Sell all these things because the only people who win are us as the gamers, right? Unless you're one of those people that, refuses to look, left or right, and you've got your focus on one console only, and, get on forums and yell at everybody else who likes consoles that you don't.
Do those people exist?
No.
I didn't think so.
The internet is a wealth of fantastic people who don't argue, who don't hurl slurs or names or anything. The internet is a wonderful place.
Reasonable discourse.
Sure.
Well, I'm really hoping too that like with the Xbox One X, okay, it's out now. Microsoft can now focus on the games, and I mean we spoke about that leak last week on episode 1. Go ahead, download, don't listen. But as we spoke about last week, I hope there's some legitimacy to that leak, and I hope they really do knock it out of the park with a really amazing E3. Like, part of me's nervous because if Xbox doesn't deliver at E3 and doesn't give us some amazing games to look forward to, that's not good.
I think they have to make sure, though, that they're announcing games. I mean, E3 is great for sure. But I mean, in order for Xbox to truly survive, they need to be focusing on games that we're going to see within the next year. You know what I mean?
Right,
you don't want another
absolutely.
scale-bound situation where they're like, oh, yeah, let's get everybody excited about this game that's not going to come out for 3 years. And then 2 years rolls around and they're like, oh, by the way, we're canceling this game. I mean, you're buying... in a sense, you're buying consumer interest, and then telling them that they're fucked. You know what I mean? Right. They need to follow through on the games that they're announcing, and they need to give those games to players now, not in 2 or 3 years. And I think they're in a pretty precarious situation. Like, sure, you've got the most powerful console, but, I mean, what's the real reason that people are going to game on your console specifically? And right now, there's just not enough. Right? I mean, I think, again, we touched on this before. It's just like, how many more Halos, how many more Gears? You guys need to give us something.
Yeah, if you want to look at how Sony's been successful, I mean, obviously their first-party studios have been pumping it out, and they've got a lot more coming. But a lot of that has been using the old wallet to get some console exclusivity. Games like Nier and Bloodborne and things like that. They're filling the bucket as well for Sony, and Microsoft has a big bank account.
But not only that, though, it's just like you also look at their first party studios are pumping out. They're ballsy right now. There's new IPs coming. It's not like, God of War is coming, right? So they're banking on a known franchise. But look at how well Horizon performed for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit worried about interest on Days Gone. A lot of people seem to think like it's a game that pulls so many mechanics that we've seen before, so there's not necessarily a lot of buzz. But I mean, I've seen that game in action, and I think if they get the message out there in the right way, I mean, it's a game that people are really, really going to like. But the point is, though, is they've got new IPs. They're not exclusively banking on shit that they've done before. They're taking risks, and I just don't see that out of Microsoft right now.
Well, I mean, at the same time, we are getting some earlier this week that the Coalition was working on some kind of original IP. Now, they've denied that, which, shocking. Of course they're going to deny it. But I mean, there are some rumors out there that there are some IPs in the work. You got to believe that if the Coalition's working on something, it's for Xbox, right? Maybe not, but you got to think it will be. So I mean, I think I got to believe. It's lately because of the Xbox One X. It's been my console of choice lately. I'm playing more on the Xbox. I'm kind of with you, Shawn.
Well.
I've just been playing more. Yeah, so I got to believe that they are going to deliver the games this year. But I'm with you; it's got to be this year. We can't be waiting till 2020.
Yeah, I mean, do you think they're going to sell consoles if this really kick-ass game is coming out in 2021? People are like, "Fuck off! What can I play at Christmas this year?"
Absolutely,
right? And Sea of Thieves and Crackdown are not going to do it. We already know about these games. We need
Forza
way
Horizon
more.
4.
Yeah, but again, it's you're touching on games that we've already played. It's like it's a new coat of paint on a game that's great. Don't get me wrong. Horizon 3 is awesome, and I've played the shit out of it. I mean, the Hot Wheels DLC alone kept me playing for hours because there's just something stupidly fun about doing a loop-de-loop in a rocket car, right? But that being said, I mean, it's a new coat of paint on a formula that we've played. What's new? right? I mean, at some point, people are going to start going, I don't want to put out 60, $70 for a reskin. I want something completely new. I want something that's going to surprise me. And they're not delivering in that department in any way.
I believe. I believe.
Belief doesn't sell consoles.
They will deliver.
Yeah,
price drops do sell consoles, though.
Price drops do. And I mean, I think, one of the things we've spoken about before is that, the One X is really going to see its success when they can afford to do that price drop. I mean, the fact that it is the most powerful console going right now makes it appealing to the multi-plat market. But if people can't afford it, it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, it's a very limited market that they're tapping into there. Price drop there is definitely going to help them, but no new games equals no success. They gotta surprise us this year.
Yeah. Well, and the reality is the games I am excited about for this year, most of them are PS4. I mean, really.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty pumped out for God of War, for Spider-Man, for Detroit Become Human, and I can't rattle off a list that easily with Xbox. I'm excited for, and then I got to pause and think about it and go to Wikipedia to see the release list for the year and go, oh yeah, that game. I'm kind of excited for that one.
Right.
It's not balanced at all.
Speaking of new games, have you guys played anything cool?
I've been mopey. Like, I've been mopey and sulky. Like, I haven't played anything. No, that's not true. I played a little bit of Night in the Woods.
I think I'm basically kind of getting back into The Witcher 3 because with me not being allowed to work on the site, it's freed up some time. I'm sorry, Trevor. It's freed up some time. So I'm kind of, now I go, I can actually dive into The Witcher.
Just keep jabbing that.
I know. Like, not only do you hate
twisting
that that I'm not working on the site, it's like, you actually get to play video games? How about you go fucking die in a fire? So
just keep turning that knife, that shank.
I'm going straight for the jugular, aren't I? It's like, I'm going to let this fucker bleed out. No, I've kind of gotten back into The Witcher 3, but in terms of that, anything else, I'm kind of been quiet. I mean, we're at that point, we're at that January mark where we're all kind of working through backlogs and stuff. I mean, because the 2018 doesn't really waste any time. We're kind of getting back into games right into February here. So I'm sure I'll be back on my shit on my bullshit with new games, in another few weeks.
Trev, you mentioned Night in the Woods.
Yes.
I think both of the rest of us have finished that one. So what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm about 4 hours in. It's like, I mean, if you were to tell me that, hey, there's this game with a cat, and there's like a record amount of text you have to read in the game. Like, you're inundated with shit you have to read. I'd be like, yeah, I'm out. I'm not interested in that.
Reading is bullshit.
Yeah, I don't want to read. I don't play video games to read. Like, come on, man. But I listened to you guys. You guys praised this game up and down. Gave it a go, and yeah, I really dig it. Like, it's weird, it's quirky. I don't quite know where the story is going at this point, because May, who's the main character in the game, she has these weird dreams, and she interacts with all these characters. But the relationship she has with her mom and dad and her friends, especially Greg,
Greg is
amazing,
who's really weird but hilarious. I'm finding I'm getting really connected to these players. I don't know where it's going. I'm about 4 hours in, but I'm loving it. And I suck at those interactive music sequences.
You're supposed to suck, though. It's supposed to be bad. Like, even if you hit,
I can't keep up. Like, I'm screwing up the buttons.
It doesn't matter. Even if you hit every button pressed perfectly, as a band, they are still the worst fucking band.
Oh, okay, because I'm not even coming close.
No, man, they suck on purpose.
But yeah, that's what I've been playing. Paul, you?
Actually, I played some more Night in the Woods just to go back and try to find some of the stuff that I had missed, and go back to previous days.
Are you Chivo hunting?
Not specifically hunting for the trophies, but I mean, the writing in that game is just so good. Like, it really, really reminds me of being a shithead teenager.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think one of the scenes where they're out back of the store smashing fluorescent light bulbs and stuff, and I'm like, that's stupid shit that I used to do.
Right.
That's dumb shit. That really, like, in my mind, I'm like, hey, you remember when you were like in your like late teens, early 20s, and the highlight of your day was going out with your buddies and getting stoned and drunk and being an idiot? Yeah, those are good memories, and that's what that brings out to me. Is like, that's dumb shit that I would have done in those days before I, grew up, like last year or so.
Guys, let's do some crimes.
Yeah.
Let's go criming.
Crimes. Let's go do some crimes.
That's a verb, right? We can use that as a verb. We're going criming.
But it just cracks me up when Greg says that. Like, it just cracks me up. Let's do some crimes.
Let's do some crimes.
Yeah. I won't spoil it for you, but the whole thing does pay off in the end in a really satisfying way. So
I agree.
That's cool.
Keep it going.
Because there's a lot of it that's like completely fucked up, but hey, I'm all in at this point.
Before we move on too far, I want to kind of touch on something here quickly, just in the interest of being relevant. I don't know if either one of you have been on Twitter this morning and seen this little bit of back and forth about David Cage and Ellen Page, in terms of there being nude models made of Ellen Page for Beyond Two Souls. I think that was the game that she was in. Yeah. That she did not approve of, and how she had actually pursued or thought about pursuing a lawsuit. And I mean, obviously that didn't go through. So I don't know if either of you have seen that sort of news this morning.
I did not see that, but my initial reaction is like, well, that is not cool. She should, if she's not giving permission.
Well, I'm going to send you guys, we're working on Discord here. So I'm going to send you guys really, maybe you and you can kind of get up to speed. David Cage did respond. Basically what had happened to my knowledge, I mean, I got to admit, percent up to speed, but basically Ellen Page refused to model nude, which was well within her rights, obviously, like without question. But what happened is the development team at Quantic Dream, they had developers create a body to go alongside. So, I mean, faked. Wasn't released in the game, but it is in the code, apparently, of the game, that, I guess maybe if you knew what you were doing, you could track it out, right? But I think what bothers me is how tone deaf the response from David Cage is, saying that, like, I'm reading right now. He's like, I work with Ellen Page, who fights for LGBT rights. You want to talk about racism? I work with Jesse Williams, who fights for civil rights in the USA. Judge me by my work. But like, that's like saying I have a black friend, I'm not racist. You know what I mean? Like, just because you work with somebody who believes in something doesn't mean that you can't believe the obvious or the opposite and work in a different way. I mean, David Cage is always kind of under the gun, I find. I mean, he gets pretty heated responses from people, and I think people have a pretty developed perception of who he is. You know what I mean? But it just, I don't know. I mean, like I say, the only reason I brought it up is in the interest, because this news kind of broke today, is, in the interest of being topical when this thing goes live. I mean, I think this is something that people are talking about, and it's just right now in the climate that we're in right now, where so many women are finally, having the courage to come up and speak against, these men who obviously overstep their bounds. It's sad to see it pervade our industry, but I mean, I would assume this isn't the only story, and it's to be expected, unfortunately. I don't know.
I'd be curious to hear more about the context of this. Do you guys know, did Ellen Page do motion cap for that game?
She did do mocap. I mean, and again, I mean, I don't know what, maybe there were purported scenes that they were going to do where they asked her, say, hey, Ellen, we're really trying to push the medium of, games as art. And, we have this scene, but it involves you being nude. And she probably was full stop, obviously, because she's never been nude in a movie, right? Or anything like that. She's like, nope, full stop, not doing that. That's a no-go. And they kind of, okay, well, we'll write it in a different manner. But the fact that Quantic Dream had the development team or the artists go out there and create this rendition of her naked, and put it into the code of the game somewhere, somehow. I mean, whether or not I don't know how true a lot of this stuff is. I mean, it's one of those allegations things that's being put down right now. But I mean, this climate right now that we're in, I mean, it just seems daily there's multiple people that are being pushed into the limelight of like, hey, you're a shitty human. And some of them, some of them owned it. I saw a really interesting thing on Twitter about this fella, Dan Harmon, who was kind of called out. And he addressed it head on. And rather than say, I didn't do it or try and dance around, he's like, this is an important conversation we need to have. Obviously, I, overstepped my power and used it in a way that was completely unfair. And to the point where his accuser actually on Twitter kind of came back and said, I forgive you. These are the steps that we should be taking. But Cage isn't taking that step. He's flat out saying, he's like, well, I know lesbians, so I'm not taking advantage of your naked body. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, and things will get worse for him if he continues to take that stance. Things will get worse for him.
Yeah,
by the hour.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know. I mean, sometimes it's like you draw a line. I saw some interesting conversation this week about the giant bombcast and how somebody was like, oh, they left a comment about how they're not listening to the bombcast anymore because of their SJW bullshit and whatnot. And I'm like, I don't know, you can classify us as whatever, but I mean, to be able to stand up for a woman to say, hey, you can't take advantage of my body in that way. I mean, you call me whatever you want, but I back that up. You just can't do that.
Of course.
So my hope in this case is that this was just kind of a mistake or like a developmental oversight, like the request to make this model had just gone off to the art team or whatever before the decision was made, and it ended up being made anyway and just made its way into the code, and it's just a mistake. But I think if that was the case, he would have said that. But
I think there's
again,
definitely
this is translated, so who knows what the actual truth is.
That's true. It is a translation. The original piece appeared on Eurogamer from, what was it, Le Monde, which is, I'm assuming, French, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot more for us to hear about it, and I have a feeling this is going to be a big topic of conversation over the course of the week. So I wouldn't doubt if we're going to be able to maybe touch back on this for next week's podcast and kind of see where it's went. But, I mean, we're in this era where, like I said, every day, it's not even every few days, every day there's somebody else being exposed for some shitty actions that they've done. And, I mean, unless we have men that are kind of owning up to their shit, it's just going to be the same circle, right? I mean, obviously these are important conversations to have, but it's just disappointing to see how often this conversation is needs to be had too. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, agreed.
Do we have anything happier to talk about?
Well,
we could talk about EA. I wrote down EA.
I see that you said needs to smarten up. Could you elaborate, Paul? Because I'm pretty sure we already shit on them last podcast.
Yeah, I mean, well, they deserve it because they basically blew it on every one of their big franchises last year. But I think there's a solution here, and they should be looking to one of their other fellow large gaming companies, and that's Ubisoft.
Ubisoft?
Because Ubi for a long time was just, overload of icons on a map, but they've really, really turned the ship. You look at games like Rainbow Six Siege, which has been supported to no end. Same thing with Wildlands, which was, middling when it came out, but has certainly improved.
Same thing with For Honor. For Honor is getting constant support. The Division is still getting support.
Right. That's pretty incredible when you think about it. Like, and same with Rainbow, pretty impressive too, because I don't think it started strong out of the gate, but it just kind of built momentum. No. It got the support it needed over the long haul, and gamers have flocked to those franchises.
They're being extremely smart in that they are viewing, because a lot of people, it's almost like a dirty word or a dirty phrase in a sense, but they're really approaching the idea of games as a service, where they're constantly updating, they're constantly providing more value to their customer. But the idea of forced extra transactions, extra pay, is not really in your face. I mean, I can't speak for the games that are more online. I would imagine there's more initiative, I would say, to spend that extra money outside of, we'll say, the main game and expansions. So anything outside of that. I think there's probably a bit more focus. But, if you look at something like Assassin's Creed, the microtransaction part of it is really minimal. It's not shoved in your face or anything. It's just there, and it's there if you really want to use it, which is a really smart way, because someone's going to look at it and go, they're going to open up the screen on Assassin's Creed for their micro store or whatever and go, I really want a fucking horse that's on fire. That's awesome, and I'm going to give them $2, or whatever to have a fire horse. Awesome. Right. But is that going to hinder your experience if you don't? No, not at all. Right. So they're doing a lot of things right. They're not only, avoiding that forced shoving of micros in your face. They're supporting games. So when a player buys a game in 2 years from now, they're still going to be able to play that game and feel like they've got an insane amount of value for the dollars that they spent.
So what does EA do right now with Battlefront 2? I mean, they can't introduce micros at this point. I don't think they can, and risk round 2 of a landslide of backlash. If they introduce a pricey season's pass like they did in the original game, they also, they'll also have a colossal just a landslide of hate. So
I think
what does EA do with Battlefront 2? Like, what do they do now?
They're backed into a corner. They're backed into a corner on Battlefront. They said from the outgo that they're not charged. Can't just right the ship and go, oh, well, we lied. They're not. That's an absolute no. They're already in enough shit with consumers as is. And then in terms of micros, I mean, if ever there was a game where you couldn't reintroduce them, this is the one. They have to cut their losses and go, we really screwed up, and they have to leave it as is. Maybe improve on some of the mechanics. That, I mean, I haven't gotten very far into the game in a sense in that. The progression, obviously is tainted because it was leaning on the idea of micro so bad. So they need to find a way to fix the progression via patching, whatever it is that they need to do, but they can't charge money for it.
Nope.
What they need to do is look at their future games, whether it's like Anthem, that sort of thing, and go, okay, how can we do this in a way that's respectful of the consumer? They only have one chance to get this right. I mean, I think if they have as big of a bomb next time around on a big game as they did with Battlefront, they're in a lot of trouble. And their shareholders, which is the reason they do this to begin with, the shareholders that they're responsible to are going to start jumping ship because the money's going to be gone.
Right.
I think they got to just go back to the beginning with Battlefront 2 and rebuild that progression system, rebuild their micros if they want to do that, and then relaunch the game sometime in the middle of this year for a discounted price. I think that's the only way you're going to get consumers back into that game.
Well, sure, they're not going to get $60 for it. No one's going to do it.
No.
Yeah, no.
Right? And I mean, I think even at $30, they'd have a hard time getting people interested because just they had their moment to shine, and they didn't kind of blow it. They blew it astronomically to the point where, I mean, Star Wars Battlefront 2 is basically a 4-letter word in this industry, right?
Yeah.
They completely screwed the pooch. And I just don't see them being able to actually insert real money transactions into that game in any way and not have gamers go like, no, fuck you guys, man. You had your chance and you fucked it up.
I think they almost need to cut their losses, focus on Battlefront 2 or Battlefront 3, sorry. It's just do better next time. I mean, what else can they do? I almost feel like they should just cut their losses.
I think there are things that EA does right, not with Battlefront, I'm saying, but I think a lot of people overlook some of the things they're doing right. I'm really happy about the support that they threw behind Unravel, for example. And now they're taking that same level of support for, is it Faye? I can't remember what the actual pronouncement is, right? But F-E, right? Faye. Putting support behind some really quality studios and really amazing indie games that aren't going to have any sort of microtransaction stuff involved, just great games at a reasonable price. I think maybe putting a lot more focus on that is something that they could gain favor with. But I mean, the bottom line is that they can't do that. They can't put that support into indie devs without the income that they get from their big franchises. And I mean, right after Battlefront dropped, I mean, they announced details on what was it, UFC 3, which is out end of this month / beginning of February, but depending on the console that you're playing it on. And I haven't followed deeply, but I know that there was a little bit of an uproar in regards to micros there, because people are like, EA's back on their bullshit, right? Like, what did they not learn anything? Maybe it was too far along in development to make any changes, and they're like, oh, we got to launch with this. But they have to know that they're literally out in the middle of the fucking lake on the thinnest ice possible, and if that ice breaks, they drown. They have to fucking fix it. But what are they doing?
And yet they seem to do it well. Like, I'm surprised that I'm not surprised there's a bit of backlash for UFC, but with their sports games, they seem to get it right. I mean, they usually contain the micros to one mode, the ultimate team modes. And so people go into those modes fully expecting, like, hey, if I want to buy these packs of cards, I can do that. And that's an option. Or if I want to grind away, I can do that as well. So people don't normally complain about Madden, for instance. And it's just in one mode. I don't have to buy those packs. I don't have to keep shelling out cash.
You could have made that argument for Battlefront, though, right? Oh, unless you play multiplayer, this particular mode, you don't need to buy these, yet everybody still lost their shit. I don't think that necessarily excuses EA. I think what that does is show the fact that the market out there is so limited, in that, like, if you want to do a football game, you play EA and you just put up with their shit because it's the only fucking game, right? Does that make it better? I don't think so. I mean, I'm not a sports guy in that, like, I don't play those games, but I'd be hard pressed to think that if there was a bigger, maybe a wider spread market, the guys that are playing the shooters and everything else also hopping into Madden, that they might not have something to say about it.
Yeah, but with Madden, there's Madden leagues. You can just jump online and play with these already stocked teams, or you can go into Madden Ultimate Team and play with these, like, beefed up Uber, teams where there is sort of, there can be, I mean, it comes down to skill too, but you can go in with like a 95 plus rated team because you spent a shitload of money on micros. But if you don't want that experience, I can still go online and just play with the Seahawks or play with the Rams, just with who's on their team, and I'll take the default ratings, what they got. If I want to play Battlefront 2 online, well, there's no sort of even playing field, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so this is a very specific mode, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Ultimate Team modes, they're in all the EA sports games at this point.
Yeah.
But I think people are just so used to that the people that want to get into it, and the people that don't just completely ignore it. I know that's how I play FIFA. I just don't play Ultimate Team because it's a time and money sink.
Yeah. And I guess the idea is that if you want to play multiplayer at all, like not a specific mode, but multiplayer at all with Battlefront, you're feeling like you have to partake in these transactions if you want to keep up. So I guess I see the difference. I just don't know if I think that it's really any better. I mean, I'm a proponent of microtransactions in games, in the sense that if it's not pushed in my face, if it's not forced, that I can have the same level of enjoyable experience. If there's something that they can offer that I'm not going to miss out on otherwise, I'm good with that. I choose not to spend my money on those things. And for the people who do, that's fine. As long as, like I say, I mean, if that's what it takes for them to be profitable and make more great games, I'm supportive of any studio doing it. I just think it's such a fine line, especially now with it being in the news as much as it is. You don't really have a lot of chances to do it wrong. You pretty much have to get it right.
But that's where I think the new Ubisoft method comes in, because, you trickle out a bunch of free stuff to people who have bought your game, and they're going to like that. So then when you come out with your paid expansion, people are banging down the door. They want to buy it. They want to get it right away. That's the way Siege has been going for the last, year and a half.
Yep.
And shows no signs of slowing down. So,
well, I mean,
I don't see why that couldn't work for EA as well.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at I don't think they were quite as much into the dumps or into the shits as EA is right now. But they were kind of like, oh, it's the Ubi downgrade. It's this, it's that. They were kind of the big publishers. They were at the bottom of the shit pile, and they took it seriously. They went back to the drawing board and they went, okay, well, how can we change that perception of this company? And it's worked. I mean, they're probably, when it comes to the big publishers, They're probably the most favorable one out there, apart from maybe Blizzard. But Blizzard is far more focused than Ubi is. Ubi obviously occupies a way wider demographic, right? So, I mean, I applaud them. I honestly do. I applaud them for the turnaround that they did. I just think that EA's got a shit ton more work in front of them than Ubi ever did.
Just please don't screw up Anthem.
Oh my God, right? I mean, watching that video, the debut video from E3, when whatever the character jumps out of that plane or whatever, and just the size and the verticality of that world to the point where like gorgeous. They went underwater and just kept going down, and there was just so much more to see. I mean, first thought, holy shit, amazing. Second thought, okay, they're going for that Destiny thing after Battlefront. Third thought, obviously, is like, they're going to fuck this up.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to fuck this up. They're going to market it in a way that it's going to sink the game, because it's an incredibly ambitious game. You can tell that right from the start. Well, how do you sustain that? You're going to need money. Well, are people going to buy the game at $100 or $120? No. Okay, so you can keep that $60 model. Where's that money coming from? And that's where I think we touched on before as well. You got to go back to the drawing board, and you got to say, how can we do micros, but do them respectfully of our consumer who has already spent $60 or $70. Respect the fact that they already parted with a lot of money. Don't force them into a situation where they have to spend more.
Yeah, agreed.
They got their work cut out for them. I'm hopeful, though.
And then again, they managed to kill the Mass Effect franchise and kill the Need for Speed franchise in the same year. So, and screw up Star Wars. Like, come on.
It's not been 2017 was not kind to them. I think Need for Speed is one of those franchises that might be, even if they were to make a great game, might be on its way out the door.
Yep.
Mass Effect, I think they can still come back from the edge. That's up to BioWare to stand up to EA maybe and say, look, we're going to develop the game that we want to develop the game. You can't rush us. They still have a chance to come out of it, only because the fans of Mass Effect, especially the original trilogy, are passionate fans. Like they believe in this universe. And I mean, and I've said that right from the beginning is that they created a pretty amazing universe that, I mean, I don't want to say rivals Star Wars. I mean, I don't want to get into that debate by any stretch, but I mean, it's a convincing, expansive world that has so much to offer, so many great races and stuff where you could build crazy stories that people will love. I mean, I'm surprised that they are not marketing this. I mean, I know there was talk, but that this isn't going to be like a major movie franchise. You know, I mean, the world is there. The depth is there. They've got one chance now to get it right. And, you know, I'm sure that BioWare is at the drawing board going, okay, how do we do this again? They're not giving up just yet.
Yeah, agreed. If you have any thoughts on that, you can email us at pressxpodcast@gmail.com. That's
we'd love to hear from people.
pressxpodcast@gmail.com.
Say it again. I interrupted you.
It's pressxpodcast@gmail.com.
Awesome. I hope people do email. I'd love to start answering some questions from viewers.
The spicier, the better.
Yeah. And I mean, I may even be excited if people just started emailing to say, I don't like this person, and tell us why you hate us. Like just anything. Just give us anything to work with. I'm excited about actually getting our very first like real email from a listener.
Yeah, so do that. I think that's going to wrap it up for this week on Press X the podcast. That was episode 2. Episode 2 of, I don't know, a lot?
A bunch.
A bunch.
We're not going to get into the bananas, bushels and stuff again, all right? Just a bunch more episodes.
No, we were in the weeds last week on that one, I think.
Yeah, hopefully we have a long run in front of us here. I'm looking forward to doing this for a long time.
Trev, you got anything to say?
No, that's it. Peace out, everyone. I smell bacon right now.
Oh my God.
There's bacon in the house right now, so I'm...
Gotta go bye.
I've completely checked out. Yeah, I gotta go eat.
I guess until episode 3, friends.
Yep. Thanks for everybody for listening. We'll see you later.
Peace out.